This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
You're plugged in for the Podcast Wrestling Society, where you can get dynamic weekly pro wrestling and MMA-related content. Give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at PODWRES Society so that you can stay in the know.
Faith is the place. The sky's the limit.
And if you like what you hear, give us a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button.
Woo! 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 Woo!
Now, your host, he is the
One and only
Troy Adams.
It's beginning to look a lot like Wrestling Wednesday here on the Podcast Wrestling Society. I'm your loving leader, benevolent host, Midwest Monster, and your local enhancement talent, Troy Adams. And today, I'm flying solo for the first time in a long time. I haven't had to do that in a while. But I had a guest host booked, or so I thought. So yeah, time is short. I wanted to get this posted by Christmas. I am not going to set aside time on Christmas Day to record, edit, and post a podcast. That's just not going to happen. So I hope you're all enjoying your Christmas. I hope you're all, either listening to me on your way to see your family, on your way back from seeing your family, or if you're just chilling at home for your Christmas. I hope you enjoy this episode. We are covering NWA Clash of the Champions Season's Beatings. But before we get into all that, we got a lot of stuff to keep us busy today. And right off the bat, I want to let you know that support the Podcast Wrestling Society comes from Manscaped, who's the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. I've been saying it for a while that Santa should be the only one with a big red sack this holiday season. And you might as well carve into your Christmas ham or turkey or goose or whatever it is you're eating today, not your sack meat. I've had a lot of issues in the past, before Manscaped came along. But since Manscaped, I've been free and clear, and as Eric Bischoff likes to say, I am aerodynamic. And there have been a lot of horror stories for a lot of guest hosts I've had on here. I've asked friends about this because I'm trying to push the product because I actually believe in it, that this is a really good product and I care about my friends, so I want them to be cool, calm, collected, and protected. And that's not always the easiest with other things. But that's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. Their Lawnmower 2.0 has proprietary skin-safe technology, so this trimmer will not nick or snag your nuts, guys. Manscaping accidents are finally a thing of the past, and you don't use the same trimmer on your face as you're using on your balls, right? Because that's just nasty. Manscaped also has the Crop Preserver, an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. I love it. My wife loves it, if you know what I mean. You already put deodorant on your armpits. Why are you not putting deodorant on the smelliest part of your body? You get 20% off, by the way, plus free shipping if you use the code BIGHEADS at manscaped.com. Always use the right tools for the job. Your balls will thank you. Get a belated Christmas, Hanukkah, or Kwanzaa gift when you get 20% off and free shipping when you use the code BIGHEADS, that's BIGHEADS, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off, plus free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the code BIGHEADS. And besides just talking about not wanting to cut into your sack meat, let's cut into the subject here. It's the end of the decade, everybody. I don't know if you've all realized that. I mean, I don't know how you couldn't. I will say this, I didn't think about it until the last couple of months when people said, oh my gosh, the 2010s are wrapping up. We're officially about to go into the 20s. It's a lot to think about, but as far as wrestling goes, there have been a lot of things. And I'm going to run down just this year, because there's too much to get to in the whole decade. But just this past year, the highlights of what's coming to me off the top of my head, I'm going to break them down by federation, the big things that have happened. And none of them are in order, other than, being in the organization. Down in Mexico, we saw the wrestling debut of Cain Velasquez. That was a big deal. We also saw his debut in WWE, which was less of a big deal. Dr. Wagner Jr. lost his hair, and he announced his retirement. This decade, he lost his mask and his hair. Actually, that happened within a matter of 3 years. Wagner has not had a good end of his decade down in AAA. I'll just say that. And Dr. Wagner Jr. is one of my favorite all-time Mexican wrestlers. As far as in Japan, I don't know anything about Pro Wrestling Noah and All Japan, whatever. I only follow New Japan on occasion. But we saw the rise and fall of Jay White. I mean, he's not completely fallen out. He's just, I don't feel that he has the steam behind him that he did going into the year 2019. We also saw the announcement of a 2-night Wrestle Kingdom. It's never been done before. Wrestle Kingdom will be spread across 2 nights. I want to say it's Saturday and Sunday night now in January. That's coming up next month. I do want to do a big review for that. I'm going to try to find somebody to review it for me, because not a lot of my friends watch New Japan, period. So I'm going to try to find somebody, anybody. Yeah. Ring of Honor. We saw Ring of Honor and New Japan and I think their team to CMLL. They all sold out Madison Square Garden. I mean, I want to say that it was mostly New Japan doing the selling out, but Ring of Honor was there. CMLL was there. So, yeah, kudos to all of them. A non-WWE product has not even ran Madison Square Garden as far as wrestling goes. Has not even ran Madison Square Garden in ages. I think it's been since the 90s at the very least, maybe the 80s. But I think it was, I want to say 96. But I could be wrong. Somebody can correct me on social media about that. But that was a big deal, and then they sold the joint out. That's amazing. The announcement, I'm sorry, I'm skipping around here. Ring of Honor viewership and attendance dropped majorly. That was a bad thing. Not all of these are good, just pointing out. So that's a big one. The Ring of Honor viewership has really taken a tumble in the last year. And some of it can be attributed to the Elite leaving. Greg, my usual co-host on here, he hasn't been on the show in a while, obviously, but since last month. But he's the usual co-host on here. He pointed out, he said, I think Ring of Honor started to fall when the members of the Undisputed Era left. I agree with that. But it was still being propped up by the Elite when the Elite left. Yeah. I forgot to put notes in for NWA, but we saw the rise of the NWA, and I know Greg would say, well, you're using that word pretty liberally, the rise. I mean, they're not doing, like WWE business or even, I don't even know if they're comparable to Ring of Honor as far as the business they're doing. They're doing studio wrestling. But they brought back studio wrestling. That's a big deal. They've got some good talent, some really good talent. Marty Scurll's there, Nick Aldis, no matter what you think of what he did in WWE, Trevor Murdoch. They've got some good talent that they can really work on. James Storm, for crying out loud. Some good talent that is not in AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, or WWE. It's good stuff, and they're not a competitor with anybody by any means, but they're not trying to be, and that's good. I still have not watched a single minute of the Power program, but I've been told by multiple people I need to. It's very good. I'm thinking of finding a podcast to listen to, because it's easier to listen to audio than it is to sit and watch a block of a show. But we'll see how it goes. That might be one of my New Year's resolutions, to watch NWA Power. I might catch up with their pay-per-view whenever it is. So I'll say this, it looks very interesting, and like I said, I love their talent. So, cool for them. The fall of Jim Cornette as far as his chances in any promotion ever. He dropped off the map with MLW, dropped off the map with NWA. People are starting to realize, don't get me wrong, he'll always have his followers, just like Vince Russo, who we've trashed on this show. He'll always have his listeners. He'll always have his loyal cult of Cornette followers, no matter what he says and does, no matter how absurdly insane he is. And just, flat out nut butterball crazy insane he is. He will always have his people backing him. So, whatever. It is what it is. I'm not going to go on a rant about Jim Cornette right here, but yeah. And I've said, I don't know if I've ever said it on the podcast, but this I'll bring it up when I get to AEW. Well, yeah, I'll bring it up when I get to AEW. Impact. Yeah, in Impact Wrestling, we saw the rise of Tessa Blanchard and Sami Callihan, both together and separately. Sami Callihan has really done great by himself and with OVE. Tessa Blanchard has become one of the biggest stars, not just women's wrestling stars, but one of the biggest stars in all of the world right now outside of WWE. And I don't know, she's been really, really pushing the intergender wrestling. That's just her thing now. She never wrestles women anymore. She always has to wrestle a man. Greg and I have made it very clear on this podcast, we hate it. We'll never, ever support intergender wrestling. It's on our YouTube page. There's a clip I think I was talking with Delvin Cox from the Delvin Cox Experience about that. Shout out. Yeah, so that's how she's made her name recently, but I don't know. She's still become a huge star, so good for her. And then we move on to AEW. There's a ton to cover with AEW. They opened their doors officially in 2019, so that's something. Greg and Ramon and all the other, everybody else, friend of the show, Ramon, who I'll mention, and there have been others who will argue this until they're blue in the face, but it's true. They had the record for the most demand ever for event tickets. They didn't have enough tickets to sell for Double or Nothing. So, but the amount of people, and it doesn't matter if it's one person or on three computers or three people on three computers, it still happened. Statistics show that they had the most demand ever for tickets for an event for Double or Nothing. And, it's a fact. Whether people want to argue it, whether they want to put an asterisk next to it or not, fine, put an asterisk next to it. It's still a fact. They had the most demand ever for event tickets for Double or Nothing. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying this as an AEW fan. I'm hot and cold on them right now. I'm hot and cold on all current promotions right now. Other big things happen in AEW. Dynamite debuted on TNT. It's the first time wrestling has been on TNT since the end of Nitro in 2001. That's a big deal. AEW came out with a bang, in my opinion, with Dynamite, and it's been what it's been. And it hasn't blown me away with the programming, I'll say that, but they've been fine. I think they need to do a lot of work in 2020, but yeah, that's something I'll talk about here in a moment as well. Chris Jericho became the first AEW champion. Whether you want to say that's good, bad, or indifferent, doesn't matter. He's their biggest star. Whether people, again, people are going to put asterisks next to it because, well, he was a WWE guy and they're pushing the WWE guy. Okay, but he's made him, outside of WWE, he's kept himself relevant. In New Japan, in AEW, whatever. You can say what you will about it, call him an old man, whatever. People buy his stuff. People like him. And believe it or not, the only person who has never, ever lost in the ratings during their segments and matches to NXT has been Chris freaking Jericho. So you can hate on him all you want. The fact is, he's doing well. So yeah. And the last thing I have for AEW is Jon Moxley leaves the WWE and he signs with AEW. For me, that was a big deal because he was a big star in WWE, or a decent-sized star in WWE, and now he's in AEW and he's doing his Jon Moxley thing. And I think he's doing well. I want to see less of the death matches, but I think he's doing well. And the thing is, I've had to put caveats next to so much of the stuff already about AEW. It's pathetic, because I don't want the WWE fanboys jumping all over me every time I compliment something that AEW does. And I'm going to do the same thing here with WWE. I'm not going to trash them, and I'm not going to put them over huge. Just like I don't think I put AEW over huge either. I mentioned I'm hot and cold on them right now. With WWE, the big things we saw, the rise of the man. She's still a huge star, Becky Lynch, that is. I feel like she's cooled down a bit since the beginning of the year, but she's still one of the biggest stars, if not the biggest star they currently have across their entire roster, man, woman, or whatever. The women main evented WrestleMania 35. Whether or not you like the match, it's irrelevant. It was a big deal. It was a huge thing. The man stood tall at the end of WrestleMania 35. She beat Ronda Rousey for the first time in her WWE career. It was a big moment. They did it up big. They made it seem like a big deal. It was a big deal. It was history-making. Women main evented WrestleMania 35. Kofi Mania. It was... I felt they dragged it out a lot and were super silly about some of it. But it paid off at WrestleMania. It was an amazing moment. The first full 100% African-American, or just straight African, because he's from Africa, WWE champion. I mean, yes, The Rock is half black, but, I mean, people can say Kofi was the first full black WWE champion. And it was a history-making moment. He got the biggest pop of WrestleMania 35. He just destroyed that crowd because of just how big they got into that moment. It kind of ruined the rest of the reactions for the show. I felt bad for anybody who had to follow that. It was great. His title run was fine, and then they buried him against Brock Lesnar, and he's become just another guy throwing pancakes now. He's still a part of... The thing is, he went back to being a part of the New Day. He's no longer Kofi Kingston, star, WWE champion. He's just one of the guys from the New Day, dancing around, smiling, throwing pancakes. So, whatever. The rise of NXT on USA, it's been doing well. I've enjoyed every single episode of NXT so far. I don't feel they've made too many missteps. Takeovers are still amazing. Whatever. The Wednesday Night War. It's still raging, whether people want to... Oh, it's been a whole 2 months. We're going to call it now. Like, F off. Like, seriously. Like, it's not even... You know, us fans made it a war. Vince McMahon thinks it's a war, obviously. Some people in AEW treat it like it's a war. It's not. One success does not have to do with the other's failure. So, you know, it's kind of like those situations where you can hate each other and you can make it a war, but in reality, it's not. The debut of The Fiend, that was a big thing. He and Becky Lynch, I'd say, are the two biggest stars in all of WWE. Every Fiend match has sucked. It's terrible. They're cartoony, they're goofy, they suck. I thought his match against Daniel Bryan was the only decent one he's had so far. The rest of them were just flat out horrible. I think the stupid mallet needs to go. I think I get hit with 5,000 finishers and still keep getting up needs to go. I don't know. whatever. But he as a character is still over. Hugely over. And people are willing to shell out $7,000 for that stupid, horrible version of the Fiend's championship. So whatever. They made money off of it. And then finally, CM Punk returned to wrestling in some shape, form, or fashion. He does not work for WWE, like a lot of people like to claim. He works for Fox. He's on that terrible, stupid, behind the backstage show, whatever the hell they do on FS1, that nobody gives a crap about. But regardless, I mean, he's in wrestling some way, shape, or form, or fashion. So, you know, that is what it is. It's a big deal. The fact that he is talking about WWE and doing some kind of WWE program is a big deal. The things I feel that each company needs to change in 2020, first of all, real quick, the Jim Cornette thing I teased earlier about AEW is, I think Jim Cornette's lost his rocker more recently, is because AEW has proved everything he's ever said about wrestling wrong. It gets over, it sells tickets. Yeah, he can sit there, well, you don't sell like it did back in the day. Nothing's going to ever sell like it did back in the day when people thought wrestling was real. Nothing is ever going to do that. So you can kind of get off that. He never will. He'll never get off of it. But whatever. He wants it to go back to the circus sideshow of, you know, the early 1900s, late 1800s, whatever, before the Gold Dust Trio came along. But regardless, AEW has proved a lot of things he thinks about wrestling wrong. It's proved him wrong. He can't deny it, but he does. And it's short-circuited him. It's, you know, he hates the guy who's running the country, and he rambles on about him every one of his podcasts. He rambles on about how terrible AEW is, even though it's so far it's fairly successful, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. He doesn't know how to deal with himself. It doesn't compute. He doesn't get it. Therefore, it is evil. So, whatever. But that is where Jim Cornette sits right now in everything. But I just wanted to say that before the things I feel that companies need to change going into 2020. With WWE, I'm going to be real quick with this. With WWE, I feel they need to be more realistic and less low rent with their storylines. Like, I know the Bobby Lashley, Rusev, Lana crap gets a lot of clicks online, but for God's sake, that's the kind of stuff that will drive the casual viewers off, because nobody wants to see this crap week in and week out, and you get embarrassed that it's even happening. And then, like, what about those kids in the crowd with their parents? WWE is supposed to be a family product, but you're talking about Rusev being a sex addict and whatever, and it's just whatever. Book the Fiend a bit more interestingly. I feel his booking has been okay, but he dragged Daniel Bryan into the ring, or like under the ring, and gave him a haircut. It was terrible. The thing with The Miz made no sense, because The Miz was like, I'm fighting for my family, and you disrespected my family, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes in there and starts doing his normal stuff. There was no brawl, there was no, big fight or anything like that. I realized I was Bray Wyatt, not The Fiend, but still, the mallet needs to go. It's not interesting or fun or cool, whatever. Commentary, I didn't write this down, but commentary needs to step the hell up. That's every single year WWE needs to do that, and they never do. Move away from Brock Lesnar and legitimately build stars and use them as crutches, not Brock. How about that? Roman Reigns isn't going to save you, as much as I love Roman. Brock Lesnar is not going to save you. John Cena is not going to come back and save you. Just build some more stars. They tried to with Seth, but they booked him like absolute ass, so nobody gives a crap about him anymore. Yeah, it's just whatever. And then, finally, listen to the crowd and quit trying to troll everyone. It feels like so many things they do are just to troll the audience, and you stupid marks, look at what we're doing now. Just do a freaking show. A good show. Don't worry about trolling the audience. That would be fan-effing-tastic if you could do that. AEW, push the stars you have, whether they're management or not. That means the Elite. The only one they've pushed thus far has been Cody Rhodes. They gave Hangman Page a push for a couple of months and then just kind of like pulled off, and now they're trying to build him up again. Kenny Omega should have been a humongous star, and they're booking him the way people were afraid WWE was going to book him. The Young Bucks they look like losers, talented losers, which, they were huge stars going into this, and they kind of crapped on them. Quit it. Build around the Elite. Please, for the love of God, that's what everybody wants. That's what everybody's been waiting for. You don't push them to the moon and don't turn them into Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall back in the day, where they never wanted to do the job and they killed everybody. But there's got to be a happy medium, guys. They're stars. Freaking push them. Don't put over these green, not ready talents over your big stars and make your stars look like goofs who can't beat this guy or this gal. And quit shoving Britt Baker down our throats. For the love of God, she's okay. She's gotten a lot better throughout the year. She's okay, but she's not your star, at least not yet. She will be someday. Quit pushing her like she's already a star. And Riho is fine. She has okay matches, but she can't cut a promo. She's not your star. Move on, for the love of God. I forget her first name, Sakazaki. She's great, and I think she could cut a promo. And she looks like a star. She acts like a star. Push her. And there are others. There are many others. Push them. Also, AEW, don't sign a bunch of former WWE talents. There are a few. Don't sign them all. You've done good about it so far. You haven't signed everybody and their brother. Just don't. Going into 2020, stick with that. Also, be groundbreaking and more realistic with storylines. Some of the stuff is okay. Don't do a brawl at the end of every Dynamite. Don't book like it's Nitro. Just, come on. And less comedy. Please. I mean, there hasn't been too much, but there's been enough where it annoys me. Ring of Honor. One tip. Build new stars and push them. New Japan, same thing. Build new stars and push them. They're doing okay. Do it more. Alright, I'm going to ask some questions at the end of the podcast. I'm going to save that for the end because I went long here. When we get to the end of the podcast, I have quite a few questions from listeners. It's only a handful of people who send in actual questions, but I will ask them. I know Ramon, friend of the show, asked quite a few questions that I'll dive into, but I'll do that all at the end of the show because I do want to get into Clash of the Champions 4 seasons beatings. We will cover that when we come back from our first promo break. Go to bigheadsmedia.com and check out all the other great podcasts that we don't have time to talk about on this show. And trust me, there are a lot. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Matt.
Kosei.
Mark.
Guillaume.
James.
Mel.
Zach. This is David.
Terry here.
We are PSG Talking. There is no other team like Paris Saint-Germain, and there's no other podcast in English talking about it. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, on our blog, psgtalk.com, or on our YouTube channel. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, this is Derek Massey.
And I'm Jeremy Newman.
And we're the Red Spurts.
If you're a Cincinnati Reds fan,
like we are,
then you need to subscribe to the Red Spurts with Massey and Newman podcast, part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network.
Each week, we bring our takes on the latest Cincinnati Reds news with our unique style, opinion, Southern high twang, and a little humor thrown in. If you're a Reds fan,
like we are,
then subscribe today.
The Red Spurts podcast is proud to be part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network and also on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and Radio Public.
Go Reds!
All right, we're back from our first promo break, and that means that we're going to get into Clash of the Champions 4 Seasons Beatings. Took place December 7th, 1988. From the UTC Arena in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The attendance was 8,000 people. I will credit, by the way, my notes to Wikipedia and 411 Mania. Just to kind of set the stage for everybody here going into it, this was the first Clash of the Champions following the sale of Jim Crockett Promotions to Turner Broadcasting and the subsequent company name change to World Championship Wrestling. So this was historic right out of the gate just for that fact alone. So besides the name, Seasons Beatings, and the date and everything, like, that's a big reason why I wanted to cover this here. Just big, game-changing stuff with WCW and NWA. The show drew a 4.5 rating on TBS. This show also set up Starrcade 1988, which is the first Starrcade to be held in December and not on Thanksgiving night. And that's because if you listen to last week's episode when I had Rob from Random Ramblings with Rob on the show, we talked about why that was, like what happened in Starrcade 1987. That was the last Thanksgiving night Starrcade show, and that's because the WWE, Vince McMahon, decided, well, I'm going to run a competing pay-per-view Survivor Series, and tell the pay-per-view providers, if you carry, because pay-per-view providers thought, well, Survivor Series comes on, and then, after it was an afternoon show, and then after that, we're going to show Starrcade, so we're going to sell it as a package deal, whatever, make a lot of money. And Vince said, no, if you carry Starrcade, I will not allow you to carry WrestleMania. So a lot of pay-per-view providers got scared and pulled out of the Starrcade deal. Only 3 called their bluff and still showed it, and then, Vince didn't do anything because, he wanted to make money. So it didn't happen. But, so Starrcade got screwed. They lost a lot of money and a lot of ratings and whatever, a lot of pay-per-view buys. And so that was the final straw. Ted Turner, World Championship Wrestling, said, nah, baba, nah. Starrcade 88, we're moving it to December. And WWE will not compete with it, which, as far as I know, they did not. Jason Hervey from the Wonder Years and business partner of Eric Bischoff was in the front row for a date for this show. So they showed that at the beginning there. The Wonder Years was a hugely popular show back in the day, so if you've never heard of it, go check it out. The commentary teams switch up throughout the night, by the way, from Tony Schiavone and Lex Luger, oddly enough, to Jim Ross and Bob Caudle. So that's setting the stage for what we are about to witness. The first match of the night, it's the finals of the NWA U.S. Tag Team Title Tournament. It's the team of Eddie Gilbert and Ron Simmons taking on Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers. The match went on for 27 minutes and 4 seconds and got 2.5 stars from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. It was fine. Like I said, this was the finals of the tournament to crown the new United States Tag Team Champions after the titles were vacated when the Midnight Express won the World Tag titles in September. They couldn't be 2 dual champions back then, so they had to pick one. Ron Simmons and Eddie Gilbert had originally lost to the Sheepherders in the semifinals, but they decided, or the decision rather, was reversed when the Sheepherders signed with the World Wrestling Federation and became the Bushwhackers. Eddie Gilbert gave a masterclass in selling your ass off in this match, I'll say that. This was some good old school wrestling action. The finish of the match saw Bobby Fulton and Eddie Gilbert repeatedly reverse each other's Irish whips, do a do-si-do out of the corner until finally Gilbert is sent shoulder first into the ring post and Fulton rolls him up with a schoolboy for the victory. So that finished that one. Moving on is so they are officially the United States Tag Team Champions, I guess. It was okay. It was fun. Tony Schiavone and his epic porn stash is at the commentary table along with a very dapper-looking Lex Luger. Luger plugs his upcoming world title match at Starrcade 1988 against Make your boy Ric Flair. He says he's out there scouting Flair for the duration of the show. Jim Ross then interviews television champion Mike Rotunda and Kevin Sullivan. They are part of the Varsity Club at this point. But yeah, they basically had a promo telling jokes about how stupid Rick Steiner is. This is a weird promo. They're also promoting their upcoming Starrcade 88 TV title match between Rotunda and Steiner. This next match, the Italian Stallion versus Dr. Death Steve Williams with Kevin Sullivan in his corner. So that's why Sullivan and Rotunda were out there, not just shamelessly plugging a pay-per-view match. It went 15 minutes and 17 seconds and actually got -1 star from the Observer. Kevin Sullivan gets in a couple of good shots to help his man throughout the match. The finish sees the Italian Stallion hit the ropes, go for a crossbody, but Steve Williams catches him and hits the Oklahoma Stampede for the pinfall win. While this wasn't a fantastic match, I think that Uncle Dave was a bit harsh on it, giving it just -1 star. It was maybe a tad boring, but it wasn't that freaking bad. But man, you know, I talked about Tony Schiavone's epic porn stash earlier. Check this out. Magnum TA, baby. He's interviewing the Junkyard Dog wearing all denim. I'll say this. Junkyard Dog may not physically be at his peak at this point, but he's cutting a pretty damn good promo. And Uncle Dave Meltzer always liked to, have fun at JYD's expense, calling him the junk food dog and everything because he pudged out. But, you know, whatever, man. He was still good at this point. I mean, he wasn't an amazing wrestler, but he was cutting good promos. He was believable. He's a junkyard freaking dog, man. But there was a lot of rhyming. It doesn't really sound corny, though, in the promo, just the way he cuts it. It was just his style. He says Paul Jones ain't nothing but the devil, and he says he's going to kick the devil's door down. And he finishes up by saying that every dog needs a bone to chew on, and he's found his bone. He cut that promo because up next is Ivan Koloff versus Paul Jones, manager, former wrestler Paul Jones. The match went 8 minutes, 21 seconds and got -3 stars. Ivan Koloff had one arm tied behind his back during the entire match. Jones pulled out a spike and used it on Koloff once. I don't know if that was a thing, why that was a thing back in the day. Everybody had a spike. There was always one heel in every promotion that used a spike, and I don't get it. But when Jones tried to use the spike again, Koloff grabbed it and used it on Jones before making the pin for the win. Like he just stabbed him in the head and then pinned him. But the tag team of the Russian Assassins attacked Koloff after the match, only for Junkyard Dog to make the save. For those of you, the Russian Assassins were two big masked men in long singlets that said CCCP on the back. So, yeah, that was the Russian Assassins, generic team. But yeah, JYD made the save, chased him off. This match had mega heat, man. It wasn't a good match whatsoever, and Jones spent most of the match embarrassing Koloff, and then he cheated. But when Ivan won, the crowd freaking blew, man. They were loud as hell. And when the Assassins attacked Koloff, fans actually threw garbage at them. This would all eventually lead to Ivan Koloff and Junkyard Dog versus the Russian Assassins at Starrcade 88. There, Assassin number 1 put a foreign object in his mask and headbutted Koloff for the pinfall victory. So, I know, I just kind of ruined a Starrcade match for you. Spoilers, everybody, for something that happened 3 decades ago. Magnum TA interviews Rick Steiner this time. It's the Battle of the Mustaches. And Magnum compliments Rick Steiner's belly-to-belly suplex as a man who used to utilize that as his finisher. Rick then talks to a face that he drew on his hand, calling it Alex. And he acts like it's a real person that whispers advice into his ear. This was just god-awful. I think this was Jim Herd era, but I don't know. I can't say for sure, but it was just god-awful cartoony BS. But he ends the interview by shouting, "Mike Rotunda, I'm gonna beat you to death!" So he's advocating murder. That's something. But up next, man, we get Dusty Rhodes versus Road Warrior Animal. We've got Paul Ellering in his corner. The winner will control the NWA World Six-Man Tag Team titles. It went on for 2 minutes, 45 seconds and got 1 star. Dusty started this match off by giving Paul Ellering a bionic elbow. For some reason, Dusty knocks the referee out and goes for the figure 4. This allows Paul Ellering and Hawk to come in and attack Rhodes. They kind of attack his injured eye that they stabbed with a spike. I'll get to that here in a few. Sting then comes out to help Dusty. Rhodes grabs a chair and hits Animal a few times until he gets disqualified. As terrible and as stupid as this whole match was, and the crowd just lost their collective freaking minds. It was horribly booked, but the crowd loved it. They blew. So, whatever, I guess. This all leads to the Road Warriors versus Dusty Rhodes and Sting at Starrcade 1988, by the way, where the Road Warriors get disqualified after Paul Ellering blatantly interferes. So that's just how this all went. It's terrible booking all the way around. After Animal won control of the six-man tag titles, the Road Warriors chose Genichiro Tenryu as their third partner champion on December 10th edition of NWA World Championship Wrestling. Tenryu was the Power Warrior that teamed with the LOD over in Japan. So we actually talked about him. I can't remember what episode, but on my other podcast, Retro Wrestling Review, RRR, go check it out. Available anywhere you get podcasts. My co-host and I, Santiago, and I talk about the Power Warrior in one match. So in our archives, I can't remember who they were taking on at the time, but yeah, go sift through the archives and hear a little bit about Tenryu, the Power Warrior. But here we go into the thing about Dusty. Dusty Rhodes was fired after Starrcade 88 because of a taboo on-screen bloodletting laid down by Turner Broadcasting Systems, following their purchase of the company during a November 26th altercation with the Road Warriors that built this match we're talking about today, actually. Furious with the interference, Rhodes booked a storyline in which Road Warrior Animal pulled a spike out of his shoulder pad and jammed it into Rhodes' eye, causing a severe laceration. Kayfabe. But Rhodes was then fired from WCW. Following this, Rhodes returned to Florida to compete in Championship Wrestling from Florida, and he also returned to the AWA for a few appearances. Rhodes finally popped up in WWF in mid-1989, and the rest is history. But yeah, Stardust there. Big Dust just couldn't follow the authority. He wanted to do his own thing. By God, I'm Dusty Rhodes. If I want to bleed, I'm going to bleed. Damn it! So stab me in the eye. And yeah, he got fired for it. Cost him his job. Whatever. It caused a big ripple effect from his career throughout the wrestling world. It changed a lot. He eventually came back to WCW in the 90s. But he had a run in WWF. I actually have a Mattel figure of him in his WWF get-up with the polka dots and all that good stuff. Main event of the evening, ladies and gents, it is the Midnight Express. Beautiful Bobby Eaton and Sweet Stan Lane. They had Jim Cornette in their corner as always. They took on the team of Ric Flair and Barry Windham with J.J. Dillon in their corner. They went on for 17 minutes and 41 seconds and got 4 stars from the Observer. For being a match without stipulations or stakes, this had a big fight feel to me. And it was a fantastic main event match with 4 of the best workers of 1988, or of any year for that matter. In the end, the Midnights hit a high-low on Barry Windham. Stan Lane super kicked Ric Flair to the floor, out of the ring into the floor. And Bobby Eaton hit the Alabama Jam on Barry Windham. Jim Cornette then, J.J. Dillon took off his shoe and went to hand it like into the ring or hit somebody, whichever. But Jim Cornette ran up behind him and whacked him with a tennis racket, and they fight over the shoe. The shoe flops in the ring. Ric Flair gets back in. He grabs the shoe. And by the way, the camera barely gets the shot of Flair hitting Eaton. Because Flair whacks Bobby Eaton with the shoe. The camera's more focused on getting shots of Cornette and Dillon fighting. So they, like, in the background, you see Flair pick up the shoe, whack Bobby Eaton in the head, and then instantly cuts away to the managers fighting. But yeah, he whacks Eaton in the back of the head, rolls Barry Windham on top of him. 1, 2, 3. I want to know what the hell J.J. Dillon had in his frickin' shoe. I know it hurts regardless getting hit with a shoe, but it's going to knock you out that bad. Like, dang. What did he have in his shoe, and how hard did Flair hit him? Jim Cornette, after this, cut a promo saying that the Midnight Express stood toe-to-toe with Ric Flair and Barry Windham, and he warned Flair that if he uses a shoe at Starrcade against Lex Luger, he would lose his world title. So I guess the stipulation was if Flair gets DQ'd, he loses the belt. Cornette then said he wanted a rematch down the line. I don't know if that match ever happened. But moving on past that, Flair went on to defeat Lex Luger at Starrcade 1988. When Luger's knees buckled while performing a torture rack, Flair fell on top of him, and he got the pinfall win. The Midnight Express took on Paulie Dangerously's original Midnight Express, Randy Rose and Dennis Condrey. I can't remember. I know Dennis was Loverboy Dennis Condrey. I can't remember what Randy Rose was. Something. I don't know. Somebody let me know on social media. They took the Midnight Expresses, took each other on at Starrcade, and ended up getting the victory. That's Eaton and Lane got the victory by pinning Rose. So that's how that happened. So that's that for Clash of the Champions 4 Seasons beatings, and you got a little bit of a front look at Starrcade 1988, which we did not cover this month. Instead, I chose to cover this one because of the holiday theme. And there was just so much around the show. It wasn't just the Clash of Champions that we were reviewing. I wanted to let you know about the storylines, about all the history of the show and around it. There was a lot going on here. There was the Dusty firing, the selling of Jim Crockett Promotions, the stuff going into Starrcade 88. There's just so much going on here I wanted to talk about. It was a good time to be a wrestling fan in 1988. The booking was a little wacky here, but, you know, it is what it is. All right, we're going to take our final break of the podcast. When we come back, I'm going to answer a couple of fan-submitted questions, and, yeah, just kind of wrap up the whole thing, kind of tell you what's ahead for the podcast Wrestling Society. We'll be back on the other side of this break, letting you know about some other great podcasts on the Big Heads Media Network.
3 inches at 300 miles an hour is still going to do some damage.
Made back right.
It ain't about how
Cheers to
big
that, brother.
Because Adam breastfed until he was 6.
I had small teeth. My mother loved me. What's the problem?
But did you know that deer eat baby birds? Do you think it's illegal to take a pellet gun and start popping pigeons from underneath the bridge?
It's a very politically correct show.
I've never wiped my ass left-handed.
You didn't left-handed?
I don't think I can.
Shooting squirrels out of boats.
You start second-guessing a lot of decisions that you make when you know that you're up against nature's apex predators.
Yeah, I'll eat some deer balls.
I don't like shooting them anywhere near the heart because I like to eat the heart.
So now we have a line at said boat launch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pickle patch back up.
Don't get your panties in a bunch of snowflakes.
Dude, we were hearing gobbles before we even sat down. We got out of the truck. We up everywhere. They were committing to the decoys until they saw him.
Right.
Like,
Oh, hell no.
They still got me fun.
Bert doesn't even particularly care for the Wu-Tang, but when he starts sounding like old dirty bastard, there's a problem. Shut her down.
I'm Bert.
I'm Adam.
I'm Ray.
And this is the Racks, Fur, and Feathers podcast.
Hi, everybody. We're back from the break, and I just want to let you all know that you go to bigheadsmedia.com. That's where we are. And that's where a bunch of other great podcasts live. Right now there are different, instead of like the drop-down menu, the different pages and whatnot for everybody, every section has their own individual website now. There's a website for pop culture, paranormal, true crime, educational, comedy, politics, college sports, outdoors, racing, history, soccer, and pro wrestling. That's where we are. My two wrestling podcasts, Podcast Wrestling Society and Retro Wrestling Review, are both on there. You can go to bigheadsmedia.com, scroll down the page, and you'll see all of that. And then or you can just, if you want just the wrestling site, you can go to bhmprowrestling.com. You scroll down, there's a Rock and Roll Up podcast, Heyman Media Group, the Podcast Wrestling Society, Exposed Turnbuckle Podcast, and Retro Wrestling Review with Troy and Santiago. A lot of stuff there, just whatever your podcast tastes are, bigheadsmedia.com is home of all of that. But right now, let's get to some fan-submitted questions here. I'm going to go down the line. First is friend of the show, Ramon. He was a co-host in the early days of PWS, if you want to go listen to the archive. He says, where does the man go from here? Where does Becky Lynch go? We were talking about that a little earlier. She's still a huge star. I feel like she's kind of plateaued, but I feel she needs a really big feud going into WrestleMania. I would have her drop the title at the Royal Rumble and then win it back at WrestleMania. Just book her don't book her identically to Stone Cold Steve Austin, because they tried doing a little bit too much Stone Cold with her in the beginning, I feel. But book her like Bruce Pritchard always says on his show, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. He always said back in the day after they moved on from Hulk Hogan, everybody they booked for like the next 5+ years after that, they would go, well, what would Hulk do in this situation? How would we book Hulk in this situation? Do that with Becky. Say, how would we book Stone Cold right here? And I think it would work. I don't know who the right person is to take the title off of her. I don't know. I love the Kabuki Warriors. I love what they're doing. I feel like they're cheapening Asuka a little bit at this point, because to me, it feels like she can't win anything by herself. Like, her and Kairi Sane had a hard time just even keeping Charlotte Flair at bay, let alone beating her, and like in a 2-on-1 situation. And they had to cheat. Whereas Asuka almost beat her solo 2 WrestleManias ago. That one's just, I don't know. But I don't know if I'd give the title to Asuka, especially since she's doing well with the Kabuki Warriors right now. I'm trying to think of the landscape of Raw women's roster. Hell, I don't know, bring back Nia Jax if she's ready to go, and have her make a surprise return before the Rumble, have her beat Becky Lynch, the steamroller, and look like an unstoppable monster going into WrestleMania, and then beat her. There you go. I don't know. That's my thought process on it. Rob from Random Ramblings with Rob, available anywhere you can find podcasts, by the way, Random Ramblings with Rob. And he was, like I mentioned, he was a co-host last week. He asked, who will be the best tag team of the next decade? Ooh, that one's hard, because I feel as far as their potential with what WWE is going to let them do, unfortunately, I feel like the Revival's plateaued. They're not going to push Anderson and Gallows to the point of where I feel they need to be pushed. I don't know. The Usos have, since Jimmy got into his legal issues and is still dealing with them, they haven't really been around much, which is sad. I don't know. I'm looking at And looking at New Japan and the NWA, I don't know if they have I don't know what tag teams they have in NWA. I don't know what tag teams they have in Ring of Honor besides the Briscoes. I think Villain Enterprises is officially broken up. AEW, I mean, I don't, like, with their landscape, I don't know, because SCU is not, I don't think they're going to dominate the decade. The only ones I could say, and they're getting older, I mean, the Young Bucks, maybe. I think the Bucks are getting better, because they're slowing down a little bit, and they're taking their time. They're not just doing they're still doing indie-rific matches, but not ridiculous, amounts of indie-rific stuff. So, maybe them, Fish and O'Reilly, perhaps. I don't know. Fish is getting a little older and broken down, so they might slide him out and slide Roderick in. I almost called him War Machine. The Viking Raiders have potential to be the next best tag team. If I'm going to go out on a limb, say anybody, because the AEW hasn't proved to me yet that they know how to book their top guys like top guys should be booked yet. I'm going to get a lot of hate from both sides saying that, but I mentioned all this earlier. I'm not going to say the Young Bucks, because they shouldn't be booked the way they are. Private Party is fine, but they're not there yet. Street Profits are good, really good, but they're not there yet. New Day's not going to be around as much. I feel that New Day has to be the tag team of the 2010s. Has to be. I mean, whether or not you think they're the best tag team in the world is irrelevant, just with everything they've done, with the star power they've had, the reactions they elicit, the merch they sell, the marketing they do for themselves. They have to be the tag team of the 2010s. I mean, the Young Bucks are a really, really, really close runner-up, I feel. Really close. And yeah, you can say WWE had the machine behind them, whereas the Young Bucks didn't. I'll agree with you. And the Young Bucks have a good argument, I feel, for tag team of the 2010s. A lot of people are going to fight me on that, that absolutely hate the Young Bucks, friends included, but whatever. That's what I feel. And I'm, like I said, I'm not talking about the best tag team in the world. I'm talking about, just overall everything combined. I don't know. If WWE pushes the Viking Raiders like they are now, and like I told Greg the other day, I said, I think they're going to be the new Demolition / LOD. I feel that Vince is going to push that, and that's freaking great. They're more talent. I love Demolition, I love LOD, but the War Raiders, I feel, are more talented as far as just the stuff they can do in the ring. They have better matches. Not taken away from the other ones, they were great in their time, and I still am a huge fan. I marked out meeting Demolition at WrestleCon 2014. Or, not 2014, I'm sorry, 2018. But, yeah, it is what it is. I feel that their War Machine has the potential to be the tag team of the 2020s. Ramon, another question from him. He asks, will Kota Ibushi beat Kazuchika Okada? I don't think so. I kind of want to see a title change, but I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know. They seem hesitant to put the title on Ibushi. I kind of understand some of it, because he's in and out all the time, and he's very different from anything they've ever pushed before. I don't know. It could happen. I'm gonna say no. But that doesn't mean that's what I want to be the answer. And that's just what I think. Delvin Cox from the Delvin Cox Experience. He's asked a couple questions here. He's also co-host of the PlayStation Experience. Delvin Cox Experience and PlayStation Experience available anywhere you find podcasts. He has been a gracious co-host on this show multiple times as well. He says, or he asks, if you have to pick one wrestler from any of the companies that you think will be the right, that you think with the right push could reach John Cena levels of success, who would it be? Oh, man. Off the top of my head, the only one I'm thinking, I'm trying to rack my brain for anybody from WWE, because the thing is, when you're talking John Cena levels of success, I'm thinking like mainstream star that could also do movies and television and whatever. I think if the right, don't give him the push that you were doing before, but I feel Roman Reigns is almost there. He's already had a small part in Hobbs and Shaw, and I think he could do more movies. I think he looks like a star, acts like a star, wrestles like a star. He's a workhorse. He's fantastic. I think Roman Reigns, if booked properly and not like a geek and not like, this is our guy, we're going to shove him down your throats, I think he could be huge. And I realize John Cena got cheered and booed a lot, as well. That's kind of just the nature of WWE nowadays with fans. But still, I feel he could reach that success. As far as AEW, I'm going to say Kenny Omega. Some people are thinking Cody. I don't know, maybe. Cody does get big responses, but I think Kenny Omega. He has fun matches, whether you like them or not. They're fun. Always, they're never boring. Some of them make you roll your eyes like, oh man, it's ridiculous. But John Cena did some of that stuff too. Not necessarily high-flying stuff, but, when Superman comes back at the last second after getting beat up for 30 minutes, and then he manages to beat the guy in 5 seconds. Come on. Or he hits 500 AAs and then finally gets the win. Yeah, so, match quality-wise, Kenny Omega, and I feel he needs to work on his promos being less silly, because he's got that cartoonish anime, manga, Japanese weeb thing going on. He needs to work on that. He has it in him to cut a good promo. He just needs to use that. Be less goofy. Be more serious. I don't know. So that's my pick, is Kenny Omega overall. In WWE specifically, Roman Reigns. Ramon sent in another question, said, I kind of combined a couple of his. The first part, he said, should Hangman Page turn heel? I'm going to say no. Not right now, anyway. He's getting over with the cowboy, S-H-I-T, gimmick. I'm trying to keep it clean, brother. He's getting over with that to an extent. He's proven he can get the crowd behind him for now. I feel AEW's kind of heel heavy right now, in my opinion. So, build him up. Maybe turn one of the heels babyface. Maybe Shawn Spears at some point, because the chairman of the board thing isn't really getting over. I've seen a lot of hate for him online. I don't know why. He's really good, and I feel in everything he does, but people just aren't buying into it the way they should. So maybe switch him babyface, try something new with him. Not the 10 gimmick per se, but just something to spice him up. Because he had the crowd behind him, and when he was a babyface in WWE, I know, the 10 thing got over, but he can come up with something else, or you guys can in AEW collectively. But yeah, and then flip Hangman heel. But yeah, so that's my idea for that. And does Seth Rollins' heel turn make him more or less interesting? I combined them because they're heel questions. I don't know if it makes him more or less interesting. I feel it makes him more realistic. Because when he was coming out there, hey guys, welcome to Raw. I love you guys. Yay! And then, cutting some stupid, scripted, corny promo like he was forcing himself to be a nice guy. And then he turns right around on Twitter as a complete jerk-off to everybody. Like, it didn't make sense. Now, he's like, he's the character that he needed to be. Like, that he's made himself. Because now because it was, look, I tried to be a nice guy, and all of you just, like, I am the nice guy, and you're just not getting it. Like, he is the guy in real life who blames the fans because he's just not clicking as a babyface because WWE booked him into oblivion. And I'm not talking, like, matches. Match-wise, like, him winning and stuff like, oh, he got a big push. Yeah, but there's more to it. Like, there's character building. His character building was god-awful. After WrestleMania, he tanked. That was another big story of 2019. He was fine for a while, being a corny babyface. He was fine. The crowd was still into him well after WrestleMania. I should say after SummerSlam. After SummerSlam is when he really tanked. Because the crowd just was like, dude, you're goofy. And the stuff with the Fiend, he's crying in the corner like you're a grown-ass man. You're crying because this dude's wearing a mask. What is he gonna do? Like, come on, man. Grow up. I don't know. It was stupid. So him being a heel, I feel is great, but I think he needs to be more like a chicken crap heel like when he was in the Authority. Especially since he's got AOP watching his back now. Of course you're going to be a chicken crap heel. Don't be right out there in the face of everybody. You can be a Triple H style, because he knew when to beg off and be a chicken crap, and then he's like, well, I got a weapon now, so now I'm tough. Be that, like that. This one comes from Dave from the Man Brain podcast. Not necessarily a friend of the show, but yeah, I don't know how often he listens, but it's kind of a disrespectful question in some ways, but he says, he's like, I like wrestling, but, some people just outgrow it and they don't realize it, is basically what he's saying here. He says, why do so many fat, old, jaded, so-called wrestling fans keep watching while constantly hating on the product? Why can't they realize they've outgrown the silliness and move on? I think he worded it improperly, I think, but I mean, he's not, I'll say this, he's not wrong. When all you do is complain, and I complain, but I also like the product. And here's the thing, when I don't like it, I turn it the hell off. That's what I've been doing lately. I haven't liked it, I turned it off. I watched TLC, went, well, that sucked, and then I didn't watch Raw the next night. I don't keep watching and complaining and complaining and complaining. When that's all you do, and you just hate the product so bad, turn it off. Like, it just, I don't get it. I realize that's just a part of your life, that's something you always do. Greg doesn't watch AEW because he doesn't like their product. Fine. A lot of people do that with WWE. A lot of people do that with AEW, Ring of Honor, whatever. But no matter, I've said this before, Vince McMahon can come out in the middle of Raw, stop a match, drop trowel, and spray diarrhea all over the ring, and then leave, not wiping like an animal, and then leaving, and then they continue on with the match on his diarrhea-covered ring, and Greg would still love it. It's fine. I'm not putting him down for it. He's a WWE fan. If that's what you like, it's what you like. Whatever. He loves the Fast and Furious franchise. I absolutely freaking hate it. Hate it. And I'll never, ever watch a Fast and Furious movie ever again. I've watched clips of a few of them. I watched the first one, and I can't get into it. I hate them. So I'm not going to keep watching them and then complain that I hate these movies. It doesn't make sense. It's not just wrestling, though. 2010 saw the rise of the fanboys more than ever before, in my opinion. Social media is a lot to blame for it because it's become more prevalent, and it's more popular, and everybody can see everybody's everything. So, and hashtags and all that BS. So, whatever. It's the rise of the fanboys. Nothing is ever satisfying. For every 10 people who say, oh, I loved Star Wars, there's going to be 20 people, or at least 10 people who have multiple accounts, that come behind them and trash it. And harassment has been through the roof with that. I mean, the Young Bucks quit Twitter for a while because they were being harassed so badly. And it's just, it's ridiculous. So, I don't know. That's, people, look, I saw I saw a meme or a picture or whatever the other day that said something that I'm gonna change the wording of it, but use the general twist of it and the last line of what it said. It said, and I'm gonna change it to fit wrestling. It's like, if every single wrestling show bothers you and everything annoys you and you hate everything and you feel the need to constantly let everybody know that you just hate everything and you hate life and you're a miserable SOB, maybe life outside of your mom's basement isn't for you. Alright? So just go back down there, disconnect from the internet, delete all your social media, and just be a hermit. Please, for the love of God. And then complain to your mom. So there you go. And that'll solve a lot of problems in the world. Ramon, last question of his, he says, how long will Chris Jericho hold the AEW title? Who should take it? I don't know if he has an official opponent for Revolution. I don't think it's set yet. Maybe it is, and I haven't kept up in the last couple of weeks. But I don't think he's going to lose it there. I don't think. Who should take it? There's one thing that, I can't remember who Tanahashi is taking on at Wrestle Kingdom. I think it's Tanahashi versus Jericho, actually, one-on-one. And if Tanahashi wins, he says he is going to, quote, open the forbidden door, and he's going to challenge Jericho for the AEW title. I want to see that match. I want to see Tanahashi job out to Jericho in America, because they like to have Americans job out to Tanahashi in Japan. So turnabout's fair play, a-hole. But, yeah. So, and by the way, if you want to hear a nice conversation between Santiago and I on Retro Wrestling Review about Tanahashi and his attitude, in the archives for Retro Wrestling Review, I think it's episode 15, we cover a match. It's Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar for the IWGP title years ago, and we talk about Tanahashi and how he is the Japanese Shawn Michaels in every way, shape, and form. And we're talking 1990s Shawn Michaels, except he doesn't have the substance abuse issues that Shawn allegedly had. So, but getting back to the question here, maybe if they're going to do a Double or Nothing pay-per-view again, or if they're going to change the name, I don't know, in 2020, I feel he should lose it then. I don't think he should hold it forever. I honestly, and the WWE fanboys are going to laugh about this, and AEW fans might, I don't know, they'll like it or hate it. Honestly, my first answer is going to be Kenny Omega, but he's not there yet. They need to build him the hell up. They need to make him look like the damn star he is, and it needs to be Kenny Omega. He needs to beat Chris Jericho and be the damn champion. Period. But as it stands now, Jon Moxley. I'm going to say Jon Moxley. No effing death matches, or maybe one or two a year. The rest of the time, just wrestle, man. You're a good wrestler. You're a believable character. You're great. They could make you a Stone Cold Steve Austin style character. And I know I made that reference twice with two different people in two different federations. But it's true. And he could do fantastic things as the AEW champion. But for right now, I'm saying Kenny freaking Omega needs to be built up and win the title and be their foot ornament. Period. And we're going to end the show, or wrap up the questions, with a final question from Delvin Cox from the Delvin Cox Experience and PlayStation Experience. He asked, with the current landscape of wrestling being what it is, new wrestlers coming in, the old guard leaving, there is just one question I can ask. How big is Batista's dick? Mic drop. That's the end. I'm going to say huge with a Y. Big league. Huge. So, the best question I heard of that so far to date was, or one of them at least, was somebody asked Bruce Pritchard, of these 4 humongous, massive structures that you've laid your hands on, which one is the biggest? The old school War Games cage, the Hell in a Cell, the Elimination Chamber, or Batista's dick? Effing loved it. Just frickin' loved it. Great. Thank you, Delvin, for writing that in. I frequently write questions like that into the PlayStation Experience when they have question time, so yeah, he's paying me back here. Final thing, we may or may not be back next week with an episode. It's probably not going to happen, unfortunately. I want to record more and better. I want a better quality show. I want recording and editing to be less of a chore. And it's not fun for me right now. It's become not fun. I've dove into Retro Wrestling Review. We brought back Cinemarks on the No Please Don't Podcast Network. Go to nopleasedon'tpodcast.com/cine-marks, CINE-MARKS. It's a movie and television podcast where we cover all kinds of subjects. We are making that a 2-a-month podcast now, because we just record a long-ass, 2-hour session and split it into 2 episodes, because we just couldn't keep up with a weekly schedule. Retro Wrestling Review, we are doing weekly, and that one's fun, and it's easy, and it's easy to edit, because while we talk and we converse about stuff in the past, we also record, we do watch-alongs to historic matches, and that furthers the discussion along, actually. So it's fun and it's easy to edit. And Santiago dives in and he helps out a lot. He built us a page on the No Please Don't Podcast website, nopleasedon'tpodcast.com/RRR. We're on the Big Heads Media Network. They have a page for us on there. So, yeah, it just, it's become more of a chore to do PWS. And I hate it. I hate the fact that it's become harder to edit, harder to find time to edit, find time to record with whoever. Greg is always busy, whether it's work or family, or he just wants to go out and have a life, which I understand. It is what it is. Ramon has a kid and a life, so he can't record. And we've had Kyle on the show before, but he's strictly into WWE. He doesn't like to do retro reviews. I get it. Taryn, who we've had on the show before, has a lot going on. Doesn't have a lot of time to sit and watch, old shows and review them. Delvin Cox has 2 other podcasts, plus he's always guesting on other people's shows. I try to switch it up. So it's tough right now. All right, it's hard out here for a pimp, and it's just, I don't know. PWS has fallen on the back burner for me because I got a lot going on personally in my life as well, with career and marriage and having a family, having a life, other stuff like that. So podcasting on here is just tough, especially when I'm getting minimal support from people for it. So if you want PWS to continue, if you want more episodes, then listen, spread us around, tell people, help us out. Please. I'm not begging, because if you do or not, it's your prerogative. I'm asking, but if you like the show, the way you can help out is by telling people about us, getting them to listen to us. Subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're on everywhere you can find podcasts that's not iHeartRadio. We're all over. So it's not hard to find us. And it's not hard to listen to us. But, it's, for those of you who do listen, thank you. I'm thinking we're going to more move into a once-a-month format and see how it goes. We're going to probably not be back next week. We might be back the week after that. That'll be our once-a-month. I don't know, and we might make, hour and a half shows. So thank you for all of you who listened, to stay in touch for, news and updates. We very much appreciate all of your support. Keep listening, listen to the archives, subscribe, like I said, pass us around, tell your friends, family, and all that stuff. Just tell strangers on the street. And we very much appreciate it. Buy some merchandise from us, from the Big Heads Media website. Under the merchandise, there is some stuff for us. So thank you all. Like I said, we'll probably be back in 2 weeks. We may have an episode next week. I don't know. Keep your ears out. Keep your ears open, whatever, for that. And we will holler at you next time, whenever that may be. Later.